In November of 1949, an elderly couple in Oshawa were found brutally murdered inside their home. There was blood throughout the house. Nicholas Katerynych was found face down on the kitchen floor. His skull had been crushed by repeated blows to the head. His wife Helen was found near the bathroom doorway. She had also been beaten, but the injury that killed her was a deep stab wound to the neck. Nicholas was 81, and his wife Helen was 76. They had lived quietly in Oshawa for several years after moving there from Saskatchewan. Nicholas had been a farmer, and before leaving Saskatchewan, he had sold his farms for $15,000. That money became important to the investigation. There had been rumors in the local Ukrainian community that the couple kept their life savings hidden somewhere inside their home. And when police arrived, the house had been thoroughly ransacked. But there was one problem. They couldn't find the money. Police believed robbery was the motive, and investigators suspected the killer or killers had been searching specifically for a hidden savings. There was also something else that bothered investigators. Neighbors said that they had noticed a suspicious car driving up and down the street before the murders. The couple had apparently even been warned that someone seemed to be watching their home. On November 29th, a neighbor finally went to check on them after they hadn't been seen for several days. What they found became the first double homicide in Oshawa's history. Police launched a massive investigation involving Oshawa Police, the OPP, and Toronto Police. A $1,000 reward was offered for information leading to an arrest. But the case went cold. Decades had passed. Then, in 1986, police received a letter from a man in prison claiming he knew who had killed Nicholas and Helen. For reasons that would later become one of the most troubling parts of the investigation, the letter wasn't properly followed up for years. It wasn't until 1999 that two Durham Regional Police homicide detectives reviewing old cases came across it, and suddenly the 50-year-old murder investigation was alive again. The man who wrote the letter was now in his 60s. He told investigators something extraordinary. He claimed that when he was just 11 years old, he had acted as a lookout while two Oshawa men carried out the murders. According to his statement, one of the men had later died in a car crash in 1954. The other was still alive. He had apparently spent decades living in the Durham region without anyone connecting him to the murders. Detectives were understandably cautious. They didn't simply accept the story. They began trying to verify it. But before they could finish, the investigation became embroiled in controversy. The detective involved later claimed they were getting close to identifying the killer when the investigation was suddenly shut down following what police described as a procedural mistake. One of the men they considered a possible suspect died of cancer in 2001. No arrest was ever made, and the investigation left behind an extraordinary unanswered question. If the prisoner's story was true, an 11-year-old boy had supposedly stood outside an Oshawa home while two men brutally murdered an elderly couple inside. He carried that secret for decades. And by the time police finally began taking his story seriously, the people who might have been able to answer for what happened were already dead. Nicholas and Helen Katerynych were buried at Bond Head Cemetery. More than 75 years later, no one has ever been convicted of killing them. And the money the killers were supposedly looking for, it was never found.